Hey guys, welcome. Muskie Road Rules Podcast, episode number 245. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And, thanks for listening to us chatter for every week about muskie fishing. Guys, today's podcast is brought to you by Lax Reproductions. Guys, if you're getting out there, and say you go out there and you got the biggest fish that you've ever caught, and that doesn't have to be a 50-inch fish. Hell, to you, it might be a 36-inch. It might be a 40-inch. And you want to get a nice reproduction of it, all you got to do is take some pictures, get some measurements, length and girth, and send a couple of good pictures over to Rick Lax at laxreproductions.com, and he'll make you one of the coolest mounts that you've ever seen. Tons of different styles, different shapes, fish going vertical, sideways, on driftwood, on rocks, all kinds of stuff you can get. Check out laxreproductions.com when you get a chance for that trophy of a lifetime. And as Rick says, is it real or is it lax? Now, guys, also text us at our text line, our Lungin Lures text line at 606-776-6570. Check us out. Send us a text. Let Tony know what's going on. He isn't on the podcast much anymore, so just, give him a hello. He might be, if he's hungover in the morning, he might want a little extra. And, let him know how you're doing. Let him know how you're feeling. Again, Lungin Lures text line, 606-776-6570. Again, Lungin Lures, 22 short, 22 long, all the Alley Cat series, also the Nutbuster spinner baits and DC-10, DC-9, all the spinners that they're making there. Check them out at lunginlures.com. On the line right now, which it sounds like from the truck, I've got Brian Schaeffer on the phone. Brian, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Greg. How's it going, bud?
Oh, it's going good. Are you driving?
I sure am.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hopefully it's not too loud.
No, that's good. That's that gives us, as the kids say, makes it real. What are you up to today?
Just taking care of some business. Got a day off here, and I'm getting some things done.
Well, that's good. It's always...
hopefully I don't lose you here. So.
Well, you are. Are you in northeastern Wisconsin?
Yep, north central.
North central. Well, then that's there's a good possibility because I know how the cell service is up there in that area. But let's talk a little bit, Brian. You spend a lot of time in that area. That's where you live. And how's it been going up in that area so far this summer?
Oh, this summer's been a hit and miss, to be honest with you. We've had some really good days and some just poor days, and overall, it's been decent, but when it's bad, it's bad. Yeah.
We're kind of going through a little stretch of that here up in the Northwest Angle, a stretch of tougher fishing. It got hot, and it's been, not a ton of wind, and, it's just been not seeing many fish at all. We're not. I'm not sure how other guys are. I haven't really talked to a ton of guys, just a few clients of mine that are out there fishing on their own, and it's kind of one of those little tougher periods right now. I mean, we're catching some, but it just makes for long days when you're not seeing them.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're dealing with up here. Some days it's miserable out there, and it's like you said, along with the weather. I mean, it's either cold, windy, or it's hot, flat, calm, and just messing with the temperatures.
Yeah, well,
and we're in the dog days of summer right now, so it's expected.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Now, you told me before we started recording here, you went over with Mike Keys and fished with Matt Seaford some in Minnesota. Can you give us a little sneak peek on that one? You said you just got back from Leech Lake.
Yeah, we just got back. We had a good time over there, caught some fish. Matt's a great guy, knows the water very well. I want to move over there. I forgot it. It's been a while since I've been over there. I just love that lake. But we did well. It started off a little rough. We got there. It was pretty warm, flat, calm, but water temps are fine. And we got some wind mixing the water up, so we did well. I'll leave it with that. We'll have to watch the show, but we had a good trip.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, Leech is synonymous with being one of those windy lakes. How was the weather out there? I've been on Leech before, where it's like, holy crap, is it windy out here?
Yeah, it doesn't take much to make some nice waves out there. And it wasn't super windy, but it was windy enough to, like, 3 guys in a boat, I got to sit in the back of the boat, so I got to pound it. And even at 8 to 10 mile an hour winds, you get beat up going across that lake. So that's exactly what we had.
Sure. Well, it's cool. So we'll check that out. That'll be on Keys Outdoors this winter for guys to see. We'll definitely have to check that out and see what's coming. But let's
keep the suspense for the show there. Way too much.
Oh, I definitely I get it. But let's talk about kind of where you're at over there. What has so far the summer been? I mean, has there been like any kind of special pattern? Has there been anything that you've noticed that has been different, or kind of give us a rundown of what you've seen so far? Say, we're doing. Me and you were talking now. It's like August 3rd, so we've got through the first part. We're kind of at the summer peak. Right in the middle of the kind of right at the hottest point of the summer.
Yeah. I'll start off at spring and then I'll go through. And, the spring started off pretty normal with fishing, and then it got really warm fast. I mean, we had 80-degree water surface temps the second week in June already. I mean, the season was only open for 2 weeks, and we were seeing 80s on some of our lakes. And then we had the cold front that moved in and then dropped our temperatures way down into the upper 60s and 70s. So, I mean, it's been a fiasco ever since then, up and down, and that's kind of why we're talking about the weird year of fishing and how it's been so unpredictable. And, I mean, we've had some of our best days and then some of our worst days this year. But as of this summer peak now, usually at the beginning of July, we get our hot water temps, and that's usually when we got shut things down for a while because it's so warm. We didn't have that this year. In fact, it was really cool. So it's been nice. We're actually having it right now. We were out last night. We're getting in the mid to upper 70s here. So, and I see we have another 3 days of mid to upper 80s. And some of the smaller lakes are probably going to hit that 80 plus mark. So I'll have to be a little careful there and get some of the deeper lakes. But as far as the bite, it's been up and down. When it was cooler, it kind of moved the fish to the weed edges, and that's pretty much where they've been staying since then. We got the Cisco lakes that they're always chasing some of the Ciscos, but our Cisco lakes just aren't as good as they used to be. We just don't have as many Ciscos up here as much, so it's a little tougher to find them. And so the weed edge has been where you want to kind of concentrate now. We've been using a lot of the last couple weeks here. We've been using larger baits, mag dogs, regular size deuces, even some husky deuces, and then the bigger tubes. And if we're throwing above the weeds, we're using unweighted tubes with either blades on them or a twister tail. So,
what are you seeing, Brian? What are you seeing for the way the fish have been? Have you been noticing that the fish have you been doing more clearer lakes, dirty lakes, or do you kind of let the day tell you that?
Usually the customer.
Oh, okay.
Will tell me, if he wants some action or whatever. But we've mainly been on the clear lakes probably the last few weeks. Now, like last night, I was on a river system at 77, so that was kind of weird to see. But it is shallow and dark. But usually it's the customer that tells me what he wants, if he wants action or whatever, because we do have a lot of smaller, darker lakes that you produce pretty decent action. But it's been pretty round the whole circle of lakes. It's weed edges.
Yeah.
Concentrated on weed edges. So
now how
a little bit of suspended bite, but like I said, ever since that cold front, they pretty much stuck to the weed edges.
Yeah. Now you guys, I think you guys had the same. We're not as warm as y'all. We're right now I think about our warmest days. Like today, it's supposed to be 82. I mean, we haven't even hardly seen 80s. It's been like this week has been by far the hottest week that we've had air temp wise, and it's been like 82, 83. But we had
for water temps like 72, 73 or something.
yeah, until you get into a sandy bay or something like that, and then you'll see, you might see 80 degrees on the surface in the middle of the day, in some of them little sandy bays and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's 73 to 75 yesterday. Now in the morning, like now, I'm sure it's like 72 out there. But yeah, I mean, we're just now seeing some of the higher temperatures.
Good.
But
it's a miracle what that wind can do to a lake. When she gets warm like that, what the wind can.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, out here on the woods, it's been, especially out in the some of the bigger sections. I mean, and too, we have current. When you get current up here, and that's something that
exactly
that is, and it's still, blows me away up here. You're on a lake system, and all of a sudden you'll go between two islands, and you can't even hold your boat because the current's so damn strong.
Right.
And it's pretty it's just really wicked sometimes how that current works on this lake up here, and on some of the bigger lakes, all generated by wind, and you just don't. I don't know. It still amazes me how that works.
Yeah, I miss it up there. I can't. Next year we might come up there. It's been a while. It's been about 5 years.
Yeah,
I miss that fishery.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's just not only is it fun fishing, but for me, where I spent 8 years in Detroit, I like hearing gunfire that's not at me. And it's just
going from one extreme to the other.
Exactly. Living in Detroit to living in Angle Inlet, population 61. It's definitely a different experience. But what's been your top producer this year, Brian?
I'm going with, I'll give you my top three here, and it would be the Medusa, regular size Medusa. Earlier it was the mid-size Medusa. Number two, well, it's going to actually be a little more, probably about 6 here. Would be the Double Dog early, and now it's just been a regular mag dog. And then starting off, it was the Trigger earlier, and now we've been getting some fish. Been pretty hot on the Detonator, slow rolling right off the big breaks. So.
Mm-hmm. Now,
so it's kind of three companies there, but 6 different styles.
No, I get it. Now the Trigger, now let's talk about that because that's a bait that doesn't get talked about too much. And personally, I've only caught a handful of fish on the Trigger, and I should probably throw it more because of those handful, half of them have been over 50 inches. But I just don't find myself throwing it. Why do you think that bait worked for you, and what do you like about it?
I just like the blade combination. I think the sound it makes, and it's just a perfect size for almost anywhere you fish. A 7-9 blade combination, and it allowed, you can hear the thing when you're doing the figure eight. You can hear it just buzzing down there and thumping on your rod. And it's just a perfect size for Wisconsin. I mean, we're still crushing them on it right now, but we have upgraded to the Detonator, which is basically the same thing, a 13 and a 10 doing the same work, but just a larger profile.
Yeah, and now the Detonator I like because it just, I don't know, I think it's just the blades turn and the skirt flares a little more. The Trigger, you really don't get that big skirt flare from it.
No, but you can slow roll them, you can burn them in, and it's just an all-around great bait. I mean, we use it all year round.
Sure. No, musky
fish. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite buck baits.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. We had Brad on last week and was talking to him, and he talks about it's a bait that he. Even he says, he goes, I usually he doesn't throw it much because it's kind of a smaller bait. He likes the Detonator size stuff. And
yeah, the Minnesota size.
Yeah. What, now when you're working those, are you how are you retrieving them? I mean, is it a more of a slow rolled bait, or is a faster retrieve?
No, I change it up. I cast out. What you want to do is get that blade spinning as soon as it hits the water. I teach all my clients that as soon as you cast it out, change your hands. As soon as it hits the water, engage and get her going. I kind of rip her going pretty quick. Then I might slow her down, and I'll change speeds throughout the retrieve, and then I go into a nice figure eight.
Yeah.
You can burn them in if they're right under the surface. It's actually a great bait for burning in like that too.
Have you noticed any? Have you noticed any special colors this year that's been working for you, or has that been just kind of day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, day-to-day, pretty much day-to-day. The Kale Crappie actually has been a really good one this year. It's gold, black, nickel in there, some silver. And that one's been pretty hot for us.
Okay, what kind of blade combination?
That's just 9 and 7.
No. I mean color for the blades.
Oh, it's a black nickel, and I think it's a gold and black nickel.
All right, yeah. Well that's cool. Now, do you notice that?
Yeah. Purple and gold's always good. Black and nickel,
Yeah.
I don't get too fancy. I keep them pretty basic.
Sure. Purple gold's what I've caught. I don't know. For me, I always call purple gold the Minnesota special.
I agree.
Purple and gold.
But
if you're going,
it's really good over here too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, but if you're going to Minnesota and you don't have a purple gold, Cowgirl Junior, something like that, and you are not, and it's especially
run in a store.
Yeah, especially if it's sunny out. I mean, those. I don't care what lake you're on. Purple gold always seems to work, and that's a color that through the years has always been super consistent. Even in Kentucky, purple gold works. So that's that's pretty cool. What are you seeing here for the next month or so? What kind of weather? How do you think the bite's going to be?
I said our water temperatures are getting up there pretty high. Now, for the last week, I haven't been on anything deep and clear because we were on leech. I imagine they're still in the low 70s, so they're going to be okay. The next few days, we got 85. Some of these smaller lakes, you might want to just give them a break for a little while because they're going to be up there. There's no doubt they're going to be high and warm. But I see Monday we got low 70s coming in, and all next week mid 70s and some wind. And it doesn't take long for them to drop down, especially with that wind and cooler nights. So I think by next week, all the lakes should be back to normal. I think from that point on, it should be pretty decent.
Yeah.
As far as water temps go.
Do you? Let me ask you this: How is? Do you find that the rivers and stuff are good when it gets really warm? I mean, do you ever see yourself going to more river fishing?
Yeah, well, last night we were on a flow edge, and we had 77 out on a lake part. You can go upriver, it cools down. Any kind of current you got is going to keep the water a little cooler. But yeah, you can do that, go up in the current areas, and it stays a little cooler. And we do pretty well on the river systems.
Yeah.
It can be fun.
All right, good deal. Hey, Brian, I need to take a little break here for just a second. Hey guys, sorry, I had to take a little break there. We're recording at around. We started recording about 7:45 this morning, and I had my first cup of coffee while recording, and well, let's just say the coffee kicked in. And we had
emergency break.
That was an emergency. That was and the recorder that I use, I have to have plugged in, and it doesn't have batteries. And plus, I don't think you wanted to hear those noises over the podcast. I think I was actually crying at one point.
Well, at least you weren't on the other side of the lake.
No, that's Well, that's when I'm an off the back of the boat guy. I'm not shy.
Oh yeah, I heard all kinds of stories.
Oh yeah, you will. There's several places out there. I like to now that I'm up here in Lake of the Woods, I like to mark islands. So it's always a good deal. But let's talk here, Brian. Now, you are in your area and even in Minnesota, and I haven't done it a ton up here. Normally this is a time of year where night fishing kind of kicks in some. Is that something that you do much in your area?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And this is the time when we really kicks in heavy. We've been doing some and doing okay doing it. But this August is usually the time when we do a lot of night fishing guide trips. And if I've had them out before, we'll do them. New clients I normally won't. But definitely this is the time of the year. The next 2 months, really right through the end of the season now. But this is when it really shines.
Sure. What are you, so at night, especially in your area, what kind of, what are you doing? What's your basic, standard night fishing protocol?
We're fishing basically the same areas we're seeing them during the day. The biggest factor in night fishing is slowing down. You want to slow down. We might upsize our baits, bigger baits. Big crankbaits are one of my favorites. Big tails. The detonator's a great one. The new grenades, those are actually really good baits too.
What are you talking about? Like, so crankbait wise, what are your night fishing crankbait selections?
Big grannies, jakes, 10-inch jakes. The innovations, shallow invader, the Magnum monster. That's a really good nighttime bait. Just slow rolling it, giving it a couple pulls. What we do is just get them down and give them a rip and just real slow, little pop every once in a while. You don't want to get too erratic. Big rubber, like just Medusas push a lot of water too. And you can just give those, just reel them in with a little pop every once in a while. Again, without being too erratic. Works really good. Or just rubber with a blade in front of it. We've been doing really well with. Just slow rolling them.
So basically, the key with night fishing that I've noticed, and I think, from what you're saying that you do as well, is, it's basically keeping a constant movement of the bait and not like doing like super hard rips or anything like that. It's more so the fish can hone in on it.
Correct. I mean, not that they won't hit anything with hard rips. It's just I think you're going to get a lot more misses, short strikes, and if you do hook them, they might not be hooked the greatest.
Okay.
And I just had better, getting fish in the net, keeping it pretty steady and slow.
Yeah.
I think just slow is the key.
Yeah. And it also sounds like, you don't, you're kind of the same way I am. You don't really need, sometimes it helps, but you don't really need rattles. Just as long as the bait moves and pushes water.
Exactly.
You're happy
Anything
with
coming through the water is making noise, anything, rattles or not, it's making noise. Rattles will help sometimes, there's sometimes you want rattles, but everything makes noise as it's pushing through the water columns.
Exactly. It's kind of like, I've learned this trolling in the south and even up on Lake St. Clair, in the fall, the lake gets pretty muddy. And in the south in the spring, sometimes we deal with a lot of mud. And it's, it's amazing how muddy a water you can catch fish in. Because, and using baits that don't even have, on St. Clair, we'll be using there in the fall 10-inch ziggies, which is, a ziggie's just a solid wood crankbait, no rattles, straight, not jointed, and it's just a big wobbling crankbait, and catching fish in some of the thickest mud on those, and it's just it makes you wonder how the hell do they even know that bait's there, and
right.
And you're still getting fish on them. So that's I think that's a big a big key. The other thing with night fishing, like you're talking about, is the slow. And I always said back when we were fishing, in Minnesota where I did a lot of night fishing, especially with women, because women tend to reel their baits a little slower.
Yep.
at night, the women would, invariably almost always outfish their husbands or their, whoever they're with, because they did reel slower.
Exactly.
And they typically.
And that's who turned me on to the hoppies. I mean, when you think you're reeling slow, Brad Carey would always tell me, you're, slower.
Yeah. No,
Slower.
Yeah, no, reeling.
I'm like, I'm going slower. Yep. Blades are spinning.
Yep. And those, and those fish will just, a lot of time at night, they just kind of, they come up from behind it and just kind of overtake that bait. And you'll just feel the rod get heavy.
Exactly.
And that's something that's pretty interesting to, excuse me, to see. But what's it? What are you seeing? Long range forecast now. Is it looking pretty good for you guys?
Yeah, like I said, the cool down's coming Monday, so everything should get back to normal. Like I said, the smaller lakes are going to be a little rough this weekend. Water temps give them a break. By middle of next week, we should be decent. We got wind, low 70s, and everything should be back to normal. And what we'll be doing is just throwing rubber, and some of the baits that we're throwing in the weeds, deuces. I like throwing deuces into the weeds, working them off the break, and you can rip them right through. And don't be afraid if you have weeds on your rubber baits. I mean, do your figure eight; they'll hit them. And the retrieve is super important too. I mean, sometimes they want them ripped. You want it when you go out there. You want to try every retrieve you can think. You want them ripped super hard. You want to hop them. Everything, because one day to the next they want it differently. And just because someone says, "Oh, we're doing good on deuces," man, it's the retrieve. Some of the most important things, even with tubes, all rubber. The retrieve is probably the most important part of the whole aspect of catching them on that bait.
Sure.
Just try them all. The rip, the drop, hop, try them all, and you'll notice very quickly what they want.
So the other thing too, you being up there and in your area, how many lakes do you fish in a given, let's say, like this time of year? How many lakes will you fish?
Generally, a full day, half a day, we will just stick it out on one lake. Normally, it's like two legs. Obviously, we're doing really well on one lake. We'll stick it out the whole day. Bigger bodies of water and things are moving, we'll stay on that lake. But generally, two. I've done three. There one time I think we did like 5 or something. We booked around all over the place, but it's normally like 2 legs.
What are you? But how many lakes do you, in a given season, do you think you fish?
Oh, my God. 20.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 lakes. And a lot of guys, you're so lucky you have all these waters. Yeah, it can get confusing.
It would drive me batshit crazy.
Yeah, you're like, well, should I be over here? Should I be doing this? Should I go over there? And it's nice to have so many options, but sometimes it's not.
Well, I'm sure when it's tough, it's probably not great sometimes. Exactly. Because you're
overthinking yourself. Maybe I should be over here. Maybe we should be doing this over here.
Yeah, you're racking your brain when you should just be fishing.
But the nice thing about where I'm at too, we do have a ton of florages, river systems. We have deep, clear lakes, shallow, dark water. So we have a lot of options there. But again, it goes right back to, dang, should I be fishing over here today or should I be over there? And this was hot yesterday, but it's not hot today. And yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, what makes you go to one of the river systems? I mean, I love that's one of the things I've been doing here lately is as I've gotten a little, older, I've been leaning towards moving water and some river systems a little more, and I'm really enjoying it. What makes you go and say, hey, let's fish the river? What would be considered a good condition?
I always start off on the rivers. I do very well early season on the rivers. They seem to progress more and get bigger fish to go quicker in the rivers. And so we'll start off on the rivers. And generally, turnover, when lakes are turning over, the rivers, you can always get there and get good actions. Cold fronts, a major cold front, the river will usually always produce. You can always get action on a river. And then late season, some of the lakes are a little tougher. You go up to the river, you always get a migration of suckers going upriver, and you can find those deep holes, and you can do pretty well.
So okay, that's what. And your rivers there are pretty stained, right?
Oh yeah, it's basically the Wisconsin River, and then tributaries coming off of it.
Yeah, it's pretty dark water.
It's dark water. I mean, it's not. You can see down, 2 feet, a foot, maybe about a foot. I'd give it.
Yeah. What's the? Now let's talk some top water here. A lot of guys are. They think, oh, it's summertime, I should be throwing top water. For me personally, I don't like throwing top water in warm water. I actually like it when it's cooling down to throw it more. And I'm more of I find myself in the summertime, especially on smaller, on lakes and systems with deep weed edges and stuff. I do better on rubber when the water gets warmer. I'm
right with you there. With you.
So like
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said so like right now in your area, when would you consider a good topwater time, and what kind of surface baits are you looking for?
Well, the best months for topwater are June and September for me. This year it's been crickets so far. Crickets. I mean, it's probably one of my worst years for topwater. And I hear that from a lot of guys. Yeah, it's just terrible. Last night, that's one thing with the flowages and the rivers. Topwater usually works pretty decent throughout the year, and this year, just terrible. Everything's working better than topwater. So, it's not much I can say this year when it comes to topwater. I know some guys are getting them, but they use a lot more than I do. But I'm with you as far as I'm using rubber, crankbaits, bucktails, midsummer, but Lake X, Chaos, Big Mamas, and all them, all great topwater baits. Clickers, sometimes they don't want the clickers on them, but there's really not much I can say for this year because it's probably been one of our worst producing years for topwater baits in my area.
What for you as surface baits? I mean, I know a lot of guys like the tail rotating baits, like you said, and I do too, but. When do you slow down? When do you throw do you throw any of the slower moving surface baits?
I do. I like some creepers, some flap tails, the bomb squad flap tails. I really like those. Those have a nice tang to them. And then I got a couple custom creepers I'll use. Those a little later at night, especially if I have a fish spotted. Those flap tails, you can kind of move those a little quicker than bomb squad ones. They push a lot of water and make a lot of noise. So
yeah, I
generally like a creeper. If I have a big fish spotted or I know or a small area, it's not anything I'm using to cover water. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've never done, and I guess I shouldn't say I've never done, but I just. For some reason, I've never really thrown a lot of creepers. I know a lot of guys like them. To me, they sound really cool. But I'm more of a hog wobbler. I've caught a lot of fish on hog wobblers. If I'm going to slow down, that's kind of what I reach for. And then some walk the dog stuff. I do like that. It's just, I get frustrated when they're missing it. It'll definitely show me fish.
And that's what I was just going to say. At least the walking dog, it's going to show you where a fish is. And you can always come back. And in my slow one, if yours is the hog wobbler, mine's probably the creeper.
Yeah, that's and I know, in past I know I've caught fish on creepers. It just seems like for me the hog wobbler is just a little easier to throw, and I just caught a lot of really nice fish on it. Did you guys in Minnesota have any topwater action?
Zero. But I heard they were catching them on topwater. We kind of had a warm weather moved in right kind of when we got there and kind of slowed down that bite, I guess. But before we got there, I guess they were getting some fish on topwater. So.
Sure. And that's the thing, and that I know I've, talking to people and getting to know people and stuff is that a lot of people have the misconception that, it's warm water, we need to throw surface baits. And, it's just something that for me and I know a lot of other guys, it seems like, you want that cooler temp.
I agree.
For surface baits, to me, perfect surface bait temperatures in that mid 60s. That's kind of when those, for me, I've had the best luck on topwater.
And
it's
60s, upper 60s, right in that range.
Yeah, and I've caught them on surface baits all the way into the 50s. And it's weird. Even in Minnesota, there's some guys, I've seen guys throw surface baits in the upper 40s and get a few fish on real slow ones. Now, it's, that's always nice when you're out there and you think you know what you're doing, and at the end of the day, and it's the water temps are like 48, and you ain't done shit, and then you get back into the dock and you talk to a guy who's like, yeah, I was throwing a top raider.
Exactly.
I got a 51. I go, well,
I think we all heard that story before, and you just sit there and shake your head.
I'm like, well, that's good for you, and and then you say, go to hell under your breath. That's I know I've done that more than once. But it sounds like you're having a pretty good year. It sounds like your fish are moving around some. I mean, this is that time of year where, you're going to have those tough days. I mean, it's just, and
exactly.
you're going to have days when, this was always in Minnesota. This was actually one of my favorite times to fish because I love fishing deep. And in Minnesota and in some of those lakes that I fished, off those weed edges, the problem is keeping your confidence up because you're not going to see fish. They're just going to hit, and but keeping your your attitude and even the attitude of the people you're fishing with, keeping that going is a big part of it because you're going to go for hours and not see anything. And then,
it's big fish season now too.
Oh yeah,
just got to remember that you're fishing for big fish now, and don't be afraid to night fish.
Sure. And with this water temperature up, I mean, there's going to be some fish. There's going to be fish out moving around. They're going to be looking, and it's a great time. I've caught some some really nice fish in the dead summer, either at night. And another thing too, for guys that like to night fish, if you're dealing with water that's a little warmer than you like, or night fishing doesn't just mean the first couple hours after dark. For me, especially when I was doing it a lot in Minnesota, this time of year, our best night bite was, and it's really hard to fish, but that 3 to 5 a.m.
Sure.
Because that's the coolest water of the day. That's when the water is at its absolute coolest. And Jesus, we caught a lot of big fish, in that super late. You can either call it super late or super early, whatever you want to call it. But
it's like right after dark and right before light.
Yep.
Just two great times.
Yeah, and it's just that right before light. Let me tell you, that's one that this old boy doesn't like seeing too much, though.
Yeah, you and me both.
That's a rough one. I've fished it a bunch, but that's a rough one.
The older you get, the less you want to see it.
Oh God!
But it does pay off. You're right.
It definitely does. But well, Brian, I tell you what, buddy, we've had a great conversation. How can you got anything you want to promote, or how can somebody get a hold of you?
Let's just go to SchaefferOutdoors.com. KOTV. Check out Keys Outdoors and 10,000 Casts on KOTV. And then SchaefferOutdoors.com. I got a Facebook page, but I'm not a big poster on there. I'll do a little bit here and there. But.
All right. Well, guys, Brian, thanks for coming on here. Guys, if you want to learn some more stuff about some of the musky hunter things we got going on, there's some changes that's going to be happening. I think guys are really going to like. I know the digital stuff may not be for everybody, but we're going to add some stuff or kind of pivot around here a little bit. I'm working on some stuff now that you might like, so go to muskyhunter.com. Also, if you're a collector, and for our collectible lures, it's the Shallow Invader this year. We've got it in sexy perch. which is quite fascinating.
Great bait.
Yeah,
Great bait.
and we're gonna do that. We've got it going. Everybody that we have your email for, if you are a collector, we do. You should have gotten an email for us if you want to go ahead and buy your bait with your number. We're getting the boxes and stuff ready right now. We're going to release some baits to the general public here probably in September. But if we don't have your email address, please give us a call. You can go to the website or shoot us an email. Also, we'll be calling you if we have your number to see if that's you want to purchase this year's lure. So check that out. Guys, I'm up here on Lake of the Woods. Be going down to Minnesota. I do have a few fall dates left in Minnesota for live bait fishing this fall. If you guys want to get out there and do that, you can always get a hold of me through social media, or you can just shoot me a call or a text, 606-776-6729. But, yeah, we can maybe do some sucker fishing this fall in the western Minnesota area. So, Brian, buddy, hey, take care, and I'm sure we'll be talking.
All right, Greg.
And,
yeah, thanks for having me, buddy.
Hey, no problem. You take care, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good.
No.
Talk.
Bye.